In the EPA, what we do is regulate, we're into knowledge, we're into advocacy, but policymakers and practitioners sometimes aren't the best of determining how to do behavioural change. And so when Anna came to us with this proposal about trying to bring in disciplines that we wouldn't be used to, most of the disciplines within the EPA, they're chemists, they're physicists, they're engineers, the geographers, but we would have very little from the social scientists, and it's a real weak spot for us. So when Anna and her team, Frances and Enrica, came to us and said, listen, we have an idea of how we can translate all of this science and what we're learning into how we can change behaviour on a day-to-day basis, would you fund it? We were delighted to do it. And I think what really surprised us is how successful this team has worked together. They have collaborated across universities, which is no small challenge in itself. They are fantastic communicators. Anna, Frances, Enrica and Ruth, I have to say, I've heard speak on numerous occasions. They are absolutely fantastic advocates themselves, and they have advocated in front of government policy groups, at any of the conferences that we've read, in front of the EPA board, and anytime we have asked them to talk to a group of people, they've been so obliging. And what I hear back from other policymakers in the Department of Health who have challenges around smoking and obesity, around the Health and Safety Authority, who have challenges around safety at work and kids falling into septic tanks and all of that, is that this is a knowledge base that none of these policymakers have. And what this research, and particularly this book, will do is avoid the same pitfalls that government policymakers and practitioners have been making for quite a number of time. And that is, we spend a lot of money on a consultancy, we do an ad campaign, we tell people what they should or shouldn't do, and we assume behaviour will change. And what Anna and her team have proved is that that just doesn't work. It needs to be a lot more nuanced, it needs to be a lot more granular, you need to talk to the specific groups, and some of the work in terms of how people choose to cycle or not to cycle in Galway, how teenagers decide when to wash, how to wash, when people decide, and all of these other things. And Ruth mentioned something at a talk she gave, and I've used it, and she talks about the iron cage of consumerism. And that's what it is. We're in an iron cage of consumerism. It is very difficult for individuals or even small groups to break out of that when you're being presented with the latest iPod, the latest car, the latest clothes, all of that. So in this book, and what I really like about this book is it is very readable. It's in 3 or 4 very good themes: living, moving, dwelling, and futures. You couldn't ask for more simple language than that, and that is another tribute to the communicators that this team is. And you might laugh when you see chapter headings called heating, washing and eating, but in terms of the biggest energy user in your home is heating water. So if your teenage daughter like mine is showering for half an hour with a power shower, when we get those electricity meters in, there's going to be an awful shock. Transport, one of the biggest issues facing society, and the way we consume and produce food and waste food is also a huge challenge. So in this book, they've hit the 3 or 4 major challenges of our time. I think that this is really good. As I said, we'll stop the same mistakes being made by policy makers in the future, and hopefully other legions of graduates and postgraduates and undergraduates will get to study this book and learn from it. So thank you very much, and we're very pleased to continue.